That looks about right. Only countersink the holes for the screws on the handle side in the center of the gate so they sit flush together. Counterweight preparation on the top panel.
So on the top panel with the hole, I usually try and use the screws that we're going to hold the skins on with, and I put the hole towards the front. A little pilot hole for those screws so the weight does not overhang the back of the panel. If it overhangs the back of the panel, it will catch the cab.
Pull the plastic off where the counterweights go prior to installation.
And get them both started before you tighten. And then be very careful when you tighten these up. This stuff does strip very easy, but when you have the panel like this sitting on top of another one, you get it to mount nice and flat, and you know that it's not overhanging the back of the panel to where it can hit the cab.
And the count. Next, we get our assembly hardware out on the table for the gates we're going to build. We have the small pulleys that go on the sheaves as well. We have the cable stop so the cable cannot come off the pulley. We have the all thread with 2 nuts for each one to lock them in place, the copper ovals, the washers, and the nuts and bolts for the pulley.
Between 1/8 or 3/16 poking up, so there's a good start for adjustment if someone needs to. Then we're going to take these guys and we're going to just snug them up. You don't got to crank them super tight, it's only brass.
Installing the pulleys on the frame.
We're going to take our cable retainer. It goes over the top of the side of the pulley that is poking up. Bolt goes through. Then you slide this through the gate head. Throw your nut on top. Hold pressure. Done.
By parting cable length for assembly.
So it's the same for every gate. You always know you're going to go a little bit past this bottom panel, so you can hold about 6 inches past that. Then you know you're going to have to go around the gate head up here, so you just hold that right there. And then you're going to be going into the panel down here. If you want, you can pull basically down to the middle so you have enough room in case you have the ends fray.
Cable preparation.
We're going to take our little washer, slide that over the top. We're going to try and gently get this to feed through. You're going to have wires like that hang over that want to poke you in the finger. Sometimes you're just going to get stabbed. Just be careful. Fold that over. Get that to pull through. Then we're going to leave about like a little less than 1/8 of an inch sticking out. And pull that guy tight. You need a tiny bit sticking out, just because when you crimp it, it's going to suck that end. Then we're going to crimp one end, the other end, and then the middle with the crimper. So we get that guy in there, go up against the side.
Position number 2. One end, the other end, and then the middle.
And then that's a nice, easy, even crimp.
Gates are laid down handle to handle. We got the flush screws touching each other. Getting ready to put the cables in. Feeding the cable through the panels.
First things first, need to make sure our holes are clear and that our end of our cable is nice and cut even. And then you gently feed this through the hole. It will still occasionally want to catch like it just did right there, and start bending back wire. If it starts doing that, it's just going to keep getting worse as it passes through. You may have to cut it. So that's why we cut extra when we go, because you can see every time I go through, it's catching a little bit more each time.
Yep.
But we made it. We pull that tight, and this is what we're talking about with it being at the bottom of the panel straight. That's why you gotta make sure that you get those guys
Very important.
inside, so this will be weird.
All right, we fold both cables back over the top.
get the first panel in, push it past the crossbar, hold your cables. Then as you pick up, you hold your cables tight so you can put this in. See how this is kicked sideways right there? We don't want that, so we're gonna try and get him to sit inside that washer before we pull him up in there. Like that. That way it sits flat. And then we get these guys in here, push them up close to our center mark, which is right here.
Now we're pulling the cable out around the pulley.
Make sure it's in the track and around the pulley, and you're gonna be good to where you're not gonna have, and then we're gonna slide the hardware in to these holes, and then the cable is gonna go in through the hardware. Same thing, lift.
Setting the panels to crimp the cables.
So I'll pull the panels towards me so they're sitting nice and flat. Line the panels up with the center mark, center of the opening with the center mark. Then we're gonna hold our cable nice and tight in our hand, and we're going to mark right at the bottom of this hardware and try and spin the cable a little bit and get our mark for where we're gonna crimp our copper on.
After marking the cable, now we slide it up above the top mounting bracket to be able to have slack to crimp the copper ovals.
So after we pull these through, you want to cut the frayed tips off if you have any, and then put a washer on each one so you do not forget to put them on. Once they are on, now we can get our copper crimp set. Getting the copper crimp set is sliding this on, and then we're going to pull this down to our mark that's on the cable and hold this copper crimp with our thumbnail, just thumbnails width where that mark is. So right there is where I need to stop at. So there's my Sharpie mark, I'm double checking. Okay, my Sharpie mark is basically the width of the washer that's gonna go there. So I've got this held where I want to crimp it. Now that it's held where I want to crimp it, I'm going to at least get the first one in. Okay, so one
end, the other end, and then the middle.
2, 3. After this is crimped, you're going to set the distance for where you're going to cut this at. So you push it up here, hold where the top of the hardware is, pull this back out, get your cutter, slide it up to where you were going to go, get a good cut, slide the washer over that, and then into the hardware, and we want it poking out just a little bit. Anywhere from about like 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So this is about 3/8, so that's fine. That's right in between where we want it.
Perfect.
All right, throw the panels back down, push them tight, and make sure you're at your center marks. We are. So now we want to take a rag and kind of wipe off the crap where our tape is gonna go. Then for a good marker, I'll use the Sharpie from where the little clip goes to the base of the marker as my little measurement for how long I need to be, and then I try and cut that nice and flat. So I have 2 even pieces going back here. And then razor blade goes back on the tape. Then we're gonna take this, we're gonna lay it over the top of the hole evenly. Get next to the edge where you can see the edge. I'm not sure if you can see where I'm at right now, but I've got it next to the edge, and then we're gonna go 1/4 inch past the edge. Lay this down and not push in the center, but we're just going around the edges here.
All right, now we're just going to test, make sure the gate is operating properly. Set it on the edge. Shake it, make sure it doesn't separate. Shake it, make sure it doesn't come down.
Good to go.